another thing about me, I probably don't need a microphone. I was kind of impressed that when you had the meeting to decide what to do, that you asked me to present for Lawrence Creates when I wasn't even there to suggest it. Thank you. Can I, quick show of hands, how many people already know what Lawrence Creates is?
Halfway.
2.5? Okay. You know that Lawrence, well, let's see, I've just got that one. Okay. That Lawrence is a pretty unusual town. We have a lot of creative people, a lot of highly educated people, and that makes for a bunch of innovators. And we have art gallery space, we have studio space for artists, but there are other resources that artists and inventors and people who are messing around with technology have use for, and that they may not be able to afford, may not have handy, like a woodworking shop, a machine shop, a computer lab that has equipment that they couldn't, maintain themselves. And Lawrence Creates is partly the place to supply those resources. But it's not just the physical resources like that either. It's also a place for people to connect from all different creative disciplines, and hopefully new ideas will develop out of that, and a lot of that's been happening. So we do gallery shows. In fact, this Friday is the final Friday, and so our gallery will be open. We're at 9th in New Jersey, and I highly recommend that everybody come visit. 9th Street is going to come alive this Friday. There's a group of KU students who are demonstrating what 9th Street might be as it gets developed as a corridor between downtown and the Warehouse Arts District. And so there'll be bike lanes and food and places to hang out, a lot of cool stuff happening along 9th Street to where we are at 9th in New Jersey, and then beyond to some of the other galleries. In addition to our gallery show, we teach a lot of classes there. Any member of the group, right now we have about 60 members, 60 real members. We have 1,000 online members. Any member can teach classes and workshops, and anybody at all can attend them. We have classes in 3D printing. Show of hands, how many people know what 3D printing is? 3D printing, you're actually printing a physical object. So the printer puts a little tiny droplet of plastic down, and then it moves up. After moving across the surface, it then moves up and goes again and puts tiny droplets of plastic down until it's built a whole 3D object. Objects with the equipment we have right now may be up to 8 inches square. An 8-inch cube. I'm sorry, I said square.
How long will we have to wait for a whole new car?
For a whole new car?
Not long.
I'll make you a car right now, but you won't want to drive it. It'll be a little toy. Okay. Yeah, 3D printing is not a really good production method right now. It's far too expensive. It's much better for prototyping, or for if you need just one replacement part that you can't get, something like that, it's great. But it's not a good way to do production. The materials are not as good as what you can use in production, and the cost of doing it is very high for production. For prototyping, it's awesome. We also have CNC machines, computer numerically controlled machines that will mill metal, a lathe, a mill, so that you can take a little block of material, and instead of building it up from plastic, you can take a piece and cut it just like you would in an ordinary machine shop. The people using Lawrence Creates, our members, are really diverse. So far we have people carving stone, dyeing silk. We have a painter there who's doing oil painting right now, who's been using it as a temporary studio space. It's mostly not studio space. It's mostly for those other things, because there are studio spaces already available. We have people making some very odd works of performance art machinery there that you'd have to come by and see. I think those will be on display Friday, some of that. We have, well, Lawrence Creates, was founded by Eric Kirkendall and Barbara Kerr. Eric has a full-time business as an environmental consultant, and Barbara is a brain scientist. And so there's this emphasis that Lawrence creates on sustainability. There's very unsustainable stuff happening here and there too, but mostly people are interested in sustainability issues. We have one project that's an aquaponic tower. This is a tower that's like this tall and about a yard wide, with grow lights and plants all down the side, and a tank at the bottom for a handful of fish. So that the thing is a system that's supposed to recirculate and recycle and produce food and look good and be a decorative element at the same time. We have a group coming up. We're going to get together and build bicycle trailers and bring in all kinds of materials for people to just come in and in one day get a good start on putting together a bicycle trailer, maybe even complete a bicycle trailer. I'm kind of skipping around a little bit because I'm not looking at my notes. Lawrence Creates was founded, just like this stuff, August, it's about two or 3 years old. August 8th, 2012 is when they incorporated as a economic development, I'm forgetting the terminology right now. Because in addition to spawning ideas and helping people to develop their work and teaching, we're also interested in starting some businesses. Not Lawrence Creates itself, which is a nonprofit, but members of Lawrence Create are assisting each other in starting businesses. And we have some members who, that's their main focus. We've already got a business doing video production, another one doing home automation, and we have a number of people who are going out and giving paid presentations. As a matter of fact, we are providing a whole summer of programs for the public library this summer. Well, one of our groups, I mentioned the brain scientist who was one of the founders, and one of the groups is what we call the brain hacking group. Hacking like computer hacking, not like, and they've been, I should probably start rolling my slides while I'm talking. These are going to be random slides. Does that do it?
No.
That doesn't do it? Yeah. Oh, Sustainability Action Network. Just recently we've partnered with them. Star Wars Reads Day was an event we did for the public library. A bunch of kids in there with a special effects stage, Darth Vader DJ, a whole bunch of different activities for them to do. We hosted a Social Service League fundraiser. That's the 3D printing workshop. It's really hard to see. This is the home automation business promotional thing. We've had classes in Adobe software, Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign. Also, the art party is the Friday night, final Friday. This is a different makerspace. This is not ours. This is one in Kansas City. There's a whole movement around the country. Maybe I'll pause this for a minute. There's a whole movement of creating maker spaces where people can come and make stuff. I want another show of hands. Who's been to the Maker Fair at Union Station? One person. Oh, we have hundreds of exhibits at Union Station this summer of people who make things. There's someone there who raises sheep, shears them, makes wool, makes yarn from the wool, and then makes stuff from the yarn, or spins it into thread and then makes things from the thread. There's me making boomerangs, and then it's from that low technology stuff all the way up to people making robots and rockets, and and all kinds of wild technological stuff, and everything in between. Hundreds of exhibits. Last year, we even had 70 lowrider custom-made cars at the Maker Faire. The Maker Faire is an outgrowth of Make Magazine, a magazine for people who make stuff. And a lot of it's people who are just doing stuff for fun and playing around and trying stuff just because they want to, not because they think it's necessarily such a great idea. And sometimes it's people who have the next brilliant idea. That organization has grown into a bunch of maker spaces all over the country, probably around the world. I don't know what the worldwide representation is, but around the country, these maker spaces where adults and kids come and have resources like what we're providing at Lawrence Creates to make whatever it is they want to make. Our space is kind of unusual among maker spaces because of our strong connection with the art community, where it's not just all technology. There's certainly some art in the technology, and all over the country. I'm not going to belittle the maker spaces. They're doing some very beautiful aesthetic stuff. But for us to have a full-time gallery there in the maker space and a close connection with a bunch of fine artists is something that's unusual. And we have been seeing all kinds of I don't know, hybridization, I don't know what to call it, between the artists and the technologists, although a lot of the people are both. But for example, one of the artists made a sculpture of a wolf that was made entirely from sticks, like kindling. Beautiful, life-size wolf, all made from just sticks from the yard. And the roboticists were looking at the wolf and thinking, wouldn't it be cool? Because every time you see a robot, it looks like a robot. It's got mechanical, metal, and computery stuff. You never see a robot that looks like a wolf made out of sticks. We didn't make that one yet, but there's actually some work in progress in that direction, away from the technological-looking robot. I kind of forgot. Oh yeah, I was talking about the connection between the artists and the technologists. Another area where that's happening is with our brain hacking group. That's putting headsets on people to read their brain waves and then interfacing them with computers. You're not getting electric shocks. It's not feeding any electricity into your brain. It's just monitoring what your brain's doing. But instead of, they're learning from doing it, but what they're doing is art. They're working on, the artistic significance of monitoring people's brains. And we've even been doing stuff with monitoring multiple people's brains at the same time and interacting. And we're going more in that direction. So that maybe at some point we could have a handful of people wearing these headsets, and the rest of the audience will hear music that is generated by the group brainwaves, or see a light show that's actually being generated by the brainwaves. I'll try and pick it out in the picture here, some of the graphic stuff that we're generating from brainwaves. We had a great presentation at the library, the public library, where kids got to do this, put on the headsets and actually compete to try and push a ball across the other person's goal line, just using their focus, just using their mental focus. Let's see. Maybe I'll go back. There's also a lot of support for open source technology, like that's technology that's available to everybody. That's our old gallery setup there with these big A-frames that have the art on them. That one right there, that's the one I wanted to stop at. That's the, this image right here is actually, you can barely see her. There's a woman right here with a headset on. And this image is being generated by monitoring her brain waves. Down at the bottom, you can't actually see, there's bar graphs of about 8 different frequencies to show how much energy her brain is generating at those different frequencies. And what this does is it sweeps around like radar, and it leaves a trail behind. Each color represents a different frequency of brainwave, and how far out the color goes represents how powerful that brainwave, that frequency is at that moment. And that's a bunch of people. That demonstration's going on at a Final Friday, right in the middle of the gallery show. There, you can see the rest of the gallery show with we call those brain flowers. Take a breath for a moment. We've had a bunch of classes for artists on things like how to photograph your work, how to write an artist statement, how to present yourself to people who might be interested in your work. Some of that has been hosted by Barbara, and based on she's the brain scientist, and her specialization is in creativity. That's that other makerspace again. That's the director of Hammerspace. I think that was from a story about him in The Pitch. And flames don't normally shoot out of his fingers. There's our oil painter working on his oil painting. This is Valerie, who's teaching amazing sewing classes. I went to that. I'm going to go back one. Here, the people haven't arrived yet for the sewing class. She's doing more of these too, and I recommend it. If you have any interest at all in sewing or learning to sew, she has you bring in your sewing machine, and you may think your sewing machine is worthless, like I did, but in a few minutes, she gets it tweaked up so that it's working beautifully, and then she had people bring in whatever it was they wanted to do. I expected people to be doing really basic stuff, like I want to make a pillowcase, or something really simple. That's not who showed up for the sewing class. There was one person who's a fine artist, and she's taking her old canvases, her old canvas paintings that she didn't feel like having on the wall anymore and hadn't sold but wanted to do something with them. She's cutting them off the stretchers. She's laminating them between other materials so that you can see them with a clear surface and a lining on the back. And she's tailoring them into fancy garments. She's even working on a bikini. It's hard to picture taking a canvas, painting and turning it into a bikini. We did suggest that no matter what she does, that should probably never go in the water. I think it's a sunbathing bikini. There was someone else there who showed up with a material I've never seen before. It was heat-resistant fabric that I think was made from something like Teflon. But it was fabric and Teflon thread for stitching it. He had this gold-colored heat-resistant fabric and thread. I don't even know what it was he was making with that stuff. So that was the sewing class with Valerie. I'm going to get this going again in the background. That's how our gallery looks today, and similar to how it'll look for this Final Friday. This is a picture of our lounge where we like to hang out. Part of our lounge. Oh, that's from the Jim Brothers show. Jim Brothers. Show of hands, how many people know Jim Brothers? Knew Jim Brothers? Really, really great Lawrence sculptor. Worked in a lot of different media, did big bronze sculptures. You probably all know his sculpture from the train station over in North Lawrence, that bronze sculpture in front of the train station. And after he died, we had a show that was dedicated to him. Had works by him and works by his friends. Most of the works by his friends were portraits of Jim Brothers. I didn't even know until we were putting the show together that he had also been an avid flyer, and had, I think he was flying kit planes, like things that you put together yourself. I think he built some planes and flew them, which is why we have this emergency parachute in the show there. He apparently had to bail out of planes on 3 occasions and crashed once, and he made it through all that. So I guess flying with Jim Brothers must have been a very exciting experience. He probably had a lot of hours for all of that, and who knows what he was flying. But there was amazing sculpture in this show. What can I say? He's great. You may also know him as one of the founders of the Alfred Packer Memorial String Band. I think he's the original bass player. Maker Faire, Kansas City, June 28th to 29th this summer. I already told you about that. Obviously, we're going to go there and bring some weird stuff to it. I highly recommend that. That is a picture of Maker Faire, just a little part. That's like 1/4 of Maker Faire at Union Station. Getting a lot of good suggestions from this. I think that's pretty well covered who we are, and what we're doing. Maybe I'll just let this roll in the background and see if anybody has any questions.
How did you get such a big building to start with?
How did we get such a big building? Excellent question. A lenient landlord who's willing to cut us a little slack and help us get off the ground. Right now, this past month was the first time. We've been there, it'll be a year in, I think, May. Just next month. And last month was the first month we were almost not losing money. So we have a few of the founding members have been keeping it going, and we all pay $20 a month membership. People pay for classes, people pay to rent the space, sometimes for events, and whenever any of these businesses that are getting spawned by the space, several of us have dedicated a part of what we make from the business to go back to the space. We're working really hard to get to the point where it's self-sustaining. We are also salvaging all kinds of electronics, checking them out, and then selling them. It's a great place to get a computer. Coming up in just a few weeks, we are going to make our first effort at recycling stuff when the students move out. We've got a deal with the university to set up next to the dumpsters at the dormitories and encourage students not to throw things away, but instead